As of recording this video, negotiations between the United States and Iran are not going well. We're still seeing missile barrages flying in both directions, and there are thousands of U.S. troops headed into the Middle East. And while Iran doesn't have the ability to launch a full-scale attack on the mainland United States, this conflict has done a very good job of showing us how quickly a regional conflict can spiral out of control. And when you start seeing sustained conflict, troop buildups, and rising tensions, it increases the chances that other major powers could get involved or see it as an opportunity to make a move elsewhere. China has its eye on Taiwan. Russia's been in a long standoff with the West for years, and history shows us that major conflicts don't stay contained for long. So today we're going to talk about the worst places to be if a full-scale war breaks out between nuclear-armed powers. The locations that I'll go over are going to be primary nuclear targets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in a war they would get hit by nukes. An enemy nation may not want to escalate things exactly to that point, so they may try to hit them in other ways, but at the very least, these are target areas that you definitely want to avoid if things get really hairy. But in order to understand why particular things would be targeted, it's important to understand what the goals of a potential nuclear strike would be. First off, it could be to get rid of an enemy nation's leadership. It could also be to prevent that nation from being able to respond to attacks, particularly with their own nuclear weapons. It could also be to cripple a nation's economy and morale, and it could also be to force a surrender like what we saw at the end of World War II. But when it comes to specific targets, it should surprise absolutely no one that most of them are going to be military bases of some sort, starting with missile fields. So missile fields, they house what are called ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those are what we would use to launch a strike on another country, so it would make sense that if they wanted to do a preemptive strike, they would want to take out as many of those as possible. So, some examples of those bases would be Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, and F.E. Warren in Wyoming. I actually passed by F.E. Warren on a road trip a couple years ago. But when it comes to these missile bases, it's important to understand that the base itself may only be like 5 or 10 square miles, but the missile fields associated with those bases can be a lot more. For example, like Malmstrom, I think the missile field associated with it is nearly 14,000 square miles, and the reason for that is that they don't want, an enemy to launch one nuke and take out all of the ICBMs associated with that particular base. So they're kind of all dotted across the countryside. So if an enemy nation wanted to take out all of them, they would have to launch a whole bunch of nukes. And y'all may have noticed that as I was going through that, those bases are located in areas with very, very low populations, and that was done on purpose. Way back when our leaders were planning all this, they wanted those ICBMs to be in sparsely populated areas to keep those missiles away from population centers. So if they're hit, a ton of people wouldn't be hit at once. But the thing about strikes on ICBMs is that they would most likely be ground bursts because, you have to do a ground burst in order to hit things that are underground. And those unfortunately do produce a ton of fallout compared to an airburst, which affects a wider area. So, considering that most wind patterns in the United States tend to be west to east, if you were east of those missile fields, that's obviously going to be a very big problem. Then on the other side, we have defensive missile bases like Fort Greely in Alaska and Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, and those house interceptor missiles, which if somebody launches a missile at us, we would try to intercept that with missiles from those bases. Now, we also have interceptors in ships, but those are kind of the main ground-based kind of defensive bases that we have. Then after that would be bases that house strategic bombers. And when I say strategic bombers, I mean large aircraft that can hold one or more large nuclear bombs, fly it to the other side of the planet, and then drop it. So some examples of that would be Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana and Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, which house B-52s. Those are very, very large aircraft, and they can carry a significant payload. I actually got to visit Barksdale Air Force Base when I was in college. One of my buddies was a mechanic on the B-52s, and I can tell you, those are very impressive aircraft, and seeing how many of them that we have was even more impressive. Then there's Whiteman Air Force Base, which holds our B-2 Spirit bombers, then Dyess Air Force Base here in Texas, and Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, which house B-1B Lancers. Then after that would be submarine bases, particularly those that can house and service Ohio-class submarines, because those are our nuclear strike-capable subs that launch Trident missiles. Some examples of those would be Naval Base Kitsap Bangor in Washington State, and then also Naval Submarine Base Kings Bay over in Georgia. But those dedicated sub bases aren't the only naval installations that would be targeted. Naval Station Norfolk is the largest naval base in the entire world, and it's also the headquarters for the U.S. Fleet Forces Command, so that would be a primary target. And then also Jim Creek Naval Radio Station that houses very low frequency radio communications technology that's used to communicate with submarines that are submerged. And then, of course, Pearl Harbor. It's our main hub for naval operations in the Pacific, and if we were to eventually get into it with China, then that's definitely something that they would end up targeting. Then after that would be command and control facilities. So, capital cities in any nation involved in nuclear conflict would obviously be a no-go. Washington, D.C., for example, has the Pentagon, it has the White House, and then also kind of a little ways away is CIA headquarters in Langley. Then over in Colorado, you have the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which houses NORAD. And then in Nebraska, you have Offutt Air Force Base, which is the home of STRATCOM. If you've ever heard of the Doomsday plane, the E-4B Night Watch, that is where that is housed. And that plane is basically kind of like a wartime airborne command post that the president could use if, all other like command and control facilities are taken out. And then after that would be continuity of government sites. Those can include Mount Weather in Virginia, then Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania. And kind of like with the missile silos, a lot of these, especially, command and control areas, they're underground, they're hardened, so they would probably be targeted with ground bursts. Whether or not those ground bursts would actually destroy the base or not, that's kind of up in the air a little bit, but at the very least, it's going to cause widespread devastation in the nearby area and will also have significant fallout in the areas around it. But military bases aren't the only things that could be targeted in a full-out nuclear war. Population centers could also end up in the crosshairs. In addition to having a ton of people, they also tend to have important infrastructure either in them or close by. Like, take Houston, for example. In addition to having, like, one of the biggest populations in Texas and also the country, it also has a lot of really important stuff for the petroleum industry, things like refineries and pipelines. Other major cities, including Houston, also has things like ports, major airports, shipyards, railway hubs, manufacturing, and then also power plants. Those may not be like in a major city, but they're probably close by. But some examples of major cities that could potentially be targeted. First off, San Francisco. It is a major financial center, and then also New York. It's kind of the financial capital of the United States, and some people might argue the world. Also, Los Angeles, it's a major population center. Chicago for its population. And then Houston, like I said a second ago, has a lot of people, and it's also very important for the U.S. energy industry. Now, hopefully none of this mess ever happens. It's all just kind of theoretical. But if you want to see what the first month of World War III would look like if it fully kicked off, then click here. Or if you want to see a more fun video over 11 preps that the government would really rather you didn't have, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.